Last week, I filled y'all in on the background reading necessary to understand the Contest of Chaos, specifically the Darkhold mini-event from 2021 and the Midnight Suns miniseries from 2022. These are the books that put the evil magic book, the Darkhold, inside the Scarlet Witch's soul and de-aged Agatha Harkness. Put those two ideas together, and you have a more confident than ever Agatha approaching the Scarlet Witch, hoping to gain custody of the Darkhold. When Wanda refused, Agatha snuck into her soul, killed the Chaos God Chthon, and she is now attempting to write a new Darkhold in the Contest of Chaos. As part of that spell, and for reasons largely unexplained, Agatha has set 16 heroes of the Marvel Universe against each other. Broken up into pairs, the two heroes are fighting for custody of Chaos Magic, which they bring back to Agatha upon winning their fight. So far, Wolverine, Storm, the Human Torch, and Taeguk Gi have won their matches, and are now magically allied with Agatha. Spider-Man, the first character to lose his fight, contacted the Private Eye Jessica Jones to find the now missing Wolverine. Smelling magic on this case, Jones contacted the sorceress Clea, who at the time was the Sorcerer Supreme of the Marvel Universe. They are on the hunt, and otherwise, the fighting continues. My name is Ben, and this is the Unplanned For Comic Book Breakdown episode 28.2, The Contest of Chaos. So the Spider-Gwen Annual is pretty good. Written by Carla Pacheco with artwork by Rosie Comp and Marika Cresta. Marika Cresta. I actually like this one a decent amount. Of course, the story stars Spider-Gwen and Korean hero White Fox. The book opens with both of the characters in like a medieval fantasy setting. Like they are both in armor. Both of them are compelled to fight over another purple crystal orb, much like the Wolverine Spider-Man fight. But yeah, they're in like a medieval fantasy land, and both sides have been told, for whatever reason, their side needs the crystal orb. Either Gwen's side needs it to defend the town that they all live in, or White Fox needs it because of whatever, I don't remember why she needed it, but just she wanted it because the spider, Gwen, had stolen it previously and it was rightfully theirs. So the two characters start fighting with each other. The White Fox has a dragon that everybody argues throughout the entire issue whether it's a dragon or a wyvern, because it has 4 limbs, meaning it should be a dragon, but one of its 4 limbs has been cut off. So it technically has 3, so everybody keeps going, well, it's technically not a wyvern, it's actually a dragon. And Gwen's like, I don't care! Fight! Jeez, guys! So the two characters start clashing with each other, but the thing that I like the most about the issue is this issue really gets across the idea that the chaos magic is compelling the two characters to fight, but they keep logicking themselves out of the fight. They'll reach a point where just they're fighting and they go, wait a minute, you're fighting because of this reason and I'm fighting because of this reason, but neither of those reasons make sense, do they? And the other character will go, no, it doesn't make sense. And then the whole world shifts around them. And they go from like a medieval fantasy village to, I would consider it Westworld, not Westworld, Waterworld, like the Kevin Costner movie, where they're trapped in the ocean, and then there's a big village that's got like iron, huge metal doors around it. And they give chase, and once they get there, they're transported to another location, until the two characters finally realize that they have been transported to a amusement park in Japan. I think they said Niigata Prefecture, that basically has all of these different worlds, quote unquote, set up within it, and that for whatever reason, this orb is making them fight. They finally end up in what looks like to me, it looks like the X-Men's Danger Room. It's like a holographic projector room, and a holographic representation of Agatha's face shows up and goes, hey, I need you guys to fight for this orb, so if you could, like, get off your butts and fight for it, that'd be great. And both of the characters go, no. They're like, look, we figured it out. You took us to this weird Japanese theme park. You're making us fight over this orb. We have no reason to fight with each other. Who are you and what do you want? And the character doesn't give any reason at all. They're just like, look, you have to fight for this orb and one of you has to win. And so White Fox is just like, yeah, all right, she wins. She can have the orb. I don't care. And then the character goes, no, you have to fight for it. You have to mean it. If you don't mean it, the magic doesn't work then. And so then White Fox beats the crap out of Spider-Gwen and ends up taking the orb and leaves, and Spider-Gwen vows that she's going to save her. Like, the two characters become friends as they are going through all of these terrible situations. And that's honestly one of the things that I like the most about this issue, where all of our previous issues have had the characters fight and conflict with each other. Even though these two characters fight, they logic their way out of the fight, and they go, even if we're compelled to fight each other, we don't have to. You're kind of dope, actually. And they get along really well. It's super cute, and it's a really refreshing change of pace from the previous issues, which were literally almost just a bunch of characters going, grunt, fight. I must fight you. Except for last issue, which saw Moon Knight give up his claim to the crystals to Tai-Guk-Gi. But then in this issue, Agatha won't let Amy give up her claim to the crystals to Spider-Gwen. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they had already fought in the presence of the crystals, so who cares? But, I mean, Spider-Gwen and White Fox were constantly fighting throughout this issue around the purple crystal orb. So again, the rules of this fight and the mechanisms that it's supposed to be, I don't know, the mechanisms through which it's supposed to be working still don't make any sense to me. Why Agatha needed Spider-Gwen and White Fox to fight to the end to claim the crystal, where Moon Knight and Tai-Guk-Gi can just give up, I don't know. Carla Pacheco is a pretty decent writer for the most part. I'll fully admit I've not read a lot of stuff by her. I know she did the last Spider-Woman ongoing series that ran for just over a year. I want to say 15, 16 issues. I did not read it because, unfortunately, I have a lot of confidence that Spider-Woman cannot hold down an ongoing series. And unfortunately, she couldn't for very long. But, I mean, from what I had read about the book was that it wasn't bad. It was just one more comic that I didn't need to pick up at the time. The art styles for this do mesh pretty well. I'm not sure which artist drew which half of the book. When the characters leave the medieval fantasy setting and they go to the water setting, I feel like that's the same artist. And it feels like after the water setting is when the art shifts. And for the most part, I think they both work pretty well. They both convey all the information. You know, they're drawing multiple different versions of Spider-Gwen and White Fox because every time they change location, they also change costume, which is really cute. And then I do like that we brought back the crystal orb. Again, this particular issue seems to reference like the structure of the Wolverine Spider-Man issue that had the crystal orb, and then the Storm and Moon Knight issues just had like raw, jagged crystals. Maybe at some point somebody took the Etzium crystals and then made them into a crystal orb. I don't know. But for the most part, this was a pretty fun issue. I do think it's a good issue. It does lean on the weaker end of the good scale to me. Like, if Moon Knight's a 10 out of 10 and Iron Man is like a 9 or an 8 out of 10, this is probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. It's good. I don't think it's very special or super interesting. But again, I do think the characters make sense. They read really well. They should be roughly about the same age, although they do have very different life experiences. And it's fun getting to see them interact with each other and walk out of this as friends. If I have any complaint, it's that Spider-Gwen, it's that Spider-Gwen does not get to be involved in the final confrontation with Agatha. She does not actually get to help rescue White Fox, which is a little bit disappointing. I love the fact that these two characters walked out friends, and I wish she could have been there for her new bestie. So that's a little sad. After that one, next up is the issue I've been looking forward to the absolute least out of this entire string of issues, the Venom Annual. Well, the Venom Annual was everything that I feared that it could be. Written by author Alyssa Wong with art by Sergio Davila. If you like Deadpool, This is a solid annual for you. If this was a Deadpool annual featuring Venom, I would probably feel less upset. But this is supposed to be a Venom annual that just happens to have Deadpool in it, and it's not. Venom is a background character in this entire book. The book stars Deadpool. He does all the jokes. He does all the action. He's the main driving force of the narrative. I really just know. I do think that Sergio Davila's artwork is fantastic. The characters both look really well. They move through the world really well. This is one of the better looking issues out of this entire streak of issues. It's probably my second favorite in terms of its overall artistry. Davila draws an incredibly good looking Venom, where he's the big shoulders, bulky back, thick tongue out, the like big Venom. Davila crushes it. And his Deadpool's pretty good too. The two characters, so the book opens with Deadpool taking his dog out for a walk, and his dog is like a symbiote Carnage, but in dog form. I don't know. I don't read Deadpool's ongoing books. They're approached by a talking magic balloon from the sewers that then kidnaps Deadpool and takes him to Hopperland, USA, which is basically like evil Coney Island. He's there freaking out about the fact that he can go on carnival rides, and then Venom gets spat out of a magical portal. And the most information we get on Venom is that this is Dylan Brock, Eddie Brock's son, as Venom. And in Dylan's own book, he has been looking for his father, because he's been missing for a while. Maybe to kill him. He doesn't quite know yet himself. He just knows he wants to find his dad. And they believe, Dylan and the symbiote believe that by being wherever they are, they can find Venom. They are then met by like a talking stuffed bear who's like, yo, if you get 4 of these magical balloons, you'll get this golden trophy made out of chaos energy that gives you 1 free wish and the power to change reality. And so the two characters move through the carnival, destroying things and sabotaging each other and stabbing each other and shooting each other, trying to get their hands on all 4 balloons so that they can win the ultimate contest. And again, if you're a Deadpool fan, this is probably great for you. He's telling jokes. There's action sequences that are pretty good. Like I said, it looks really well. I love Davila's artwork. He really captures the fun and chaos of a carnival. It works really well. The coloring's really good. I don't have the information for the colorist up here, but they do a fantastic job capturing the lights of a carnival. And then just as Deadpool gathers all of the 4 balloons, Venom bites his arm off, and then he's like, I've got all the balloons! And Venom wins the contest, and he gets teleported away to join Agatha's forces. I think perhaps my favorite moment is as Venom is being teleported away, Deadpool like sees through the magic portal, and he sees Agatha, and he's like, Agatha, you look great. You look so young and youthful right now. Your magic's been kicking it lately. Can I come hang with you for a minute? And I don't understand why, other than that Wade's horny, probably. Despite the fact that the issue opens with him with his, I think, current girlfriend. I'm not sure. I thought that was actually pretty funny because like nobody really seems to comment on the fact that Agatha looks like she's back in her 20s. To be fair, the Scarlet Witch did in the Scarlet Witch Annual. She's like, Agatha, you look young. And Agatha's like, I was always young, dear. Just the flesh now matches the spirit. And I don't think that's very true. Agatha Harkness has always been written like a crusty old bird. And so I just don't know how much that rings true. But yeah, overall, I didn't really like this. It's fine. Again, it's a comic book. It does look really good. I would probably give if I'm going to continue the rating scale, this is a 2 out of 5 because it looks really nice. But in terms of being a Venom comic, it utterly and drastically fails. There is no personality to Dylan. There's no personality to Venom. This doesn't explore the characters' plot lines at all. Like, it barely mentions their plot lines. It's just there. Again, if you're a Deadpool fan, this is probably really right up your alley, and I would highly suggest it. It's probably a solid Deadpool issue. But as a Venom issue, this does nothing for me, and I don't really like it. In our continuing backup feature, I forgot to mention it for the last issue, didn't I? In our continuing backup feature, Clea teleports Jessica Jones and Spider-Man to the location where Spider-Man fought Wolverine, and they find basically a purple and black wasteland. Like, it's like the life has been drained out of the area-ish. And right when Clea casts a spell to figure out who cast the spell that made the town, she's like homing beaconing this stuff. And she encounters the astral form of Agatha Harkness. She's like, yo, Agatha, you're up to some stuff. I don't trust you. And Agatha's like, wait, you need to listen to me. And Clea goes, I don't have to listen to you. I'm a sorcerer supreme. You're a crazy witch. I'm going to shut you down. And unfortunately, she doesn't. Agatha manages to like cancel the spell out or bounce Clea back to her own body. Agatha wakes back up in her body at the Bermuda Triangle, and her forces continue to surround her. Wolverine, Taigukki, Storm, White Fox, and now Dylan, Brock, Venom, preparing for the next step of the plan. It's not very interesting. It doesn't really show us anything more other than that Agatha has to do this, she says. It's fine. Again, nothing special. Our next issue is the X-Men Annual. I'm looking forward to this one. Okay, the X-Men Annual is a swing back up in quality. Written by Paul Allor with artwork by Alessandro Miracolo. I really liked this one. Scott Summers, a.k.a. Cyclops, and Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel of the Avengers, have been transported to a small town in, I think it was Iceland. I believe it's Iceland, and both of the, like, I really like the story progression on this one. This is, from a story structure standpoint, I think this is probably the best written issue of the Contest of Chaos. Because the story starts off and both of the characters are in this Icelandic town, right? It's a small little fishing village. And the thing that I really like is both of the characters are in an unfamiliar situation. They both wake up in the town and they're like, what am I doing here? What are you doing here? But then the first thing the characters do is they connect. Scott Summers spent time with his grandparents in Alaska in a small fishing village like this one. Carol Danvers grew up on the East Coast of the United States. I think it was in Massachusetts or Connecticut. I don't remember off the top of my head. So she is also familiar with small fishing towns. The ocean breeze coming in off the waters brings both of them to a place where they both feel at home. These are also characters where, if you're familiar with them, they have a long and established history. They've known each other for years, although they don't know each other very well. They've worked together, but to call Cyclops and Captain Marvel friends would not really be accurate. They are colleagues, for sure, and they get along pretty well for the most part, but they aren't close friends. So author Paul Allor kicks off the story by establishing this connection between them. They have a shared history with exactly this kind of village. They both feel uneasy about being where they are, but they also both feel a little bit at home. But then they also pick up on this sense of aggression that's in the air. Like, the village itself seems to not like them. And from out of nowhere, like, masonry just falls off a building and tries to hit them. At one point, Cyclops is walking and he's about to step up on the sidewalk, and the whole sidewalk just shifts upward to trip him. The city is intentionally antagonizing him. So the two characters separate to kind of scope out the situation. And as they are scoping out the situation, they're getting angrier and angrier. And again, Allure does a really good job of saying, like, Cyclops is a character whose whole life has been about control. Because he cannot turn his optic blasts on or off. He always has had to maintain control of who he is and his emotions and his life. And Carol Danvers, on the other hand, has always maintained control over her powers, but control that she releases all the time. Carol Danvers is a battering ram. Where Cyclops runs into a problem and he has to strategically think his way out of it, Carol Danvers just punches a problem until it breaks. And if it doesn't break, she punches it until it breaks. She's not a character who thinks her way through a situation. She power pushes her way through a situation. And so she starts flying away from the village and she hits a magical force field. And she goes, great, flippin' magic, cool. And she goes back to Cyclops and he's like, look, weird thing I noticed while you were gone, there's no animal life here. There's no fish in the ocean, no birds in the sky. And that's a real shame because we've got fishing boats and fishing equipment. That would be a good way to keep us alive while we're trapped here. And she goes, oh, we're trapped here. Well, how do you know we're trapped, Scott? And he's like, I don't know that we're trapped, but clearly somebody wanted us here because they brought us here. And if we're going to be here, we need a way to survive. I just figured we should have a food source, you know? And Carol's like, well, there's a magic barrier keeping us trapped in here, which maybe you knew about. And he's like, that's literally crazy talk. I did not say anything along those lines. And it escalates from there. The two characters start competing and fighting with each other. There's this really great dig. So when Carol Danvers ran with the X-Men, she was drawing her energy-based powers from a binary white dwarf star, and she went by the codename Binary, and she had like this wicked, awesome-looking energy form. And as the two characters start fighting and they're sniping at each other, Cyclops, the only binary you are is between insecurity and even more insecure, and she just, boom, she decks him. Cyclops is not typically a very good insult man. He is not the world's most loquacious fighter, but that was solid. Oh, it was so good. So the two characters, eventually the two characters notice that there is one fish in the bay, and it's this weird, doofy, cartoony looking fish. It's like purple and light blue, big bug eyes. It looks really dumb. And they're like, oh my God, I have to get that. The same compulsion that came over like Wolverine and Spider-Man or Taegukgi and Moon Knight comes over them. They have to get custody of this thing. And so as they're fighting, Captain Marvel just outclasses Cyclops. She absorbs his optic blast and she can punch him around and fly around all day. He does not have a tactical advantage. So he forces her to charge at him, and then he just takes off his visor and hits her with the most powerful optic blast he can possibly unleash. He releases his very carefully practiced control. And Carol's like, are you an idiot? You just gave me all the power that I need to destroy you. And he goes, yeah, I know. And when you destroy me, you'll blow up what? Iceland? Sweden? Maybe all of Norway? Maybe this entire continent? I know that you're one of the most powerful people in this world, Carol, and that if I give you a reason to maintain control, you will maintain control because you won't let yourself lose. And so she's sitting there like glowing with the energy of the sun, and she's just like, all right, you win. And Cyclops goes and he collects his fish and he gets teleported to Agatha. And it's just, this issue takes the character examination work that was done in the Iron Man Annual, and it takes really interesting combat work that was done in the Moon Knight Annual, and it combines it both in one. And I'll fully admit, I'm an X-Men fan. I'm not a very big Cyclops fan, but I am a big X-Men fan. And again, much like how Storm took her fight, fantastic. Cyclops taking his fight, I am equally proud. But I'm also glad that both of these characters feel like they are really written in character. It is both of them at their best, with Cyclops outthinking opponent and Carol Danvers proving that she has the strength to do whatever she needs to do, even if the one thing she needs to do is the thing she wants to do the least, which is not beat the absolute crap out of Cyclops' face. Which, I don't blame him. And at one point, there's a really cool moment when they're beginning to fracture and like poke at each other, where Carol is pointing out, she's like, I don't know you very well, Scott. So if there's any inconsistencies in your character, I wouldn't be able to tell. I know Jean Grey. I can tell you Wolverine's poker tells. So if something was up with them, I would know that something was up with them, but I don't know with you. And I know those two well enough to know that they make a better couple any day. And I'll fully admit I am not a fan of the Wolverine-Jean Grey pairing. Never have been. Probably never will be. I'm a Cyclops and Jean guy. If you have to pair Jean up with one of them, I would say it's got to be Cyclops. I personally prefer Jean rolling solo, thank you. I don't think she needs either of these men in her life. There's my hot take for the episode. But overall, I really liked the build-up for this one, where it starts off with here's a connection, and then you see them start to fracture, but they fracture based on their history with each other. And then when they start fighting with each other, you're seeing their personalities really well executed in the way they're trying to combat each other. And then ultimately the book ends with both of these characters playing into their strengths, Scott's strategy and Captain Marvel's ability to not let herself down. Just super good, really well done. I had a blast with this one. Alessandro Miracolo has a very animated style, but not in a cartoony way. It reminded me quite a bit of... I don't remember the artist's name. He drew Black Science with Rick Remender. He's an Italian artist. I really like his line work. I just haven't seen his stuff in so long. Oh, no. I'll look it up. Black Science comic book. Matteo. Matteo Scalera. Ah! I know it looks like I looked it up and then I remembered the name, but please believe me when I tell you I remembered the name just seconds before it came up. And anyways, I do really like the artwork for this. I do feel like Cyclops looks a little more like he's got more of a superhero physique than Captain Marvel does, where she just kind of has like a female's physique. She doesn't really look like a powerful superhero. But the two characters are drawn on model. I really love the energy form that Carol takes when Cyclops blasts her. Other than that dopey looking fish, I do really like the artwork for this issue. The fishing village looks great. Overall, like I said, the combat works. This is probably... I mean, this is in my top 3 issues for Contest of Chaos. This was solid. And then in our backup feature... What happens in our backup feature? Do I even remember what happens? They kind of summarize. Clea summarizes what was basically that Clea basically summarizes that Agatha has been using these heroes to gather chaos energy so that she can do something. They don't know what yet, but do something in order to prevent more chaos from being unleashed upon the world. Vague as hell. Clea also reveals that during her encounter with Agatha's astral form, she hit her with a magical tracer, so she's got an idea of where they are. She knows that she's in the Bermuda Triangle, and Spider-Man's like, hey, we should call up the Avengers so that they can deal with this. Does anybody have the Avengers number? And it's another moment of Stephanie Phillips just not... Spider-Man was an Avenger! I'll admit, he's not part of the current team, and he hasn't been a part of the Avengers in probably a couple of years, but he knows their number. He knows these people. Why the fuck? God. It's just... I'm just annoyed at how poorly written I find the character to be the entire time. And then I'm also annoyed because at the end of the Iron Man Annual, after Storm gets magically zapped away to Agatha, Iron Man calls Captain Marvel and he's like, yo, Cap, we've got an Avenger situation we need to deal with. But then there's no follow-up here. Captain Marvel never says anything along the lines of whoa, I heard about Iron Man fought Storm. Wow, and now I'm here fighting Cyclops. Is this an Avengers versus X-Men thing? What's going on here? It really feels like there should be more of a background plot line building to the confrontation. While I understand Jessica Jones reaching out to Clea, how come nobody's called the flippin' Scarlet Witch, who is the Agatha Harkness character, especially when you're dealing with magic stuff. And then we're going into the Avengers issue. The Avengers Annual is our final issue of the Contest of Chaos, which would have been a perfect way to set up the Avengers introduction with the Iron Man issue. You have Captain Marvel be like, the Avengers have been investigating what's going on and we haven't found any proof of anything yet. Wanda's looking into it. And then you get to the Avengers issue and then Wanda's like, I figured out Agatha's location or whatever's going on. Or I checked my Darkhold soul labyrinth and Chthon's been murdered. And I think Agatha did it. We should go deal with that. I'm going to surely have more story structure thoughts when we finish reading the actual issue. So, let's get to it. Avengers Annual Issue 1. Let's finish off the Contest of Chaos. Alright, we're at our final entry for the Contest of Chaos. The Avengers Annual. Written by Stephanie Phillips. Drawn by Alberto Foche Duarte. He had additional help on this one. I do not remember the other artist's name off the top of my head. But this issue brings everything to the close. The Avengers, basically, now that they've been given the information by Clea that Agatha is in the Bermuda Triangle putting together a new Darkhold, the Avengers go to the Bermuda Triangle. They fight the various characters that Agatha has sicked against them, and then Clea, Jessica Jones, and Spider-Man show up, and they're like, you haven't solved this yet? And Captain Marvel's like, no, we're just fighting all of these people. And Clea's like, Agatha must be stalling. And then Carol goes, she's stalling to create the Darkhold. I bet she's in the Bermuda Triangle. And sure enough, we see a shot of Agatha with the orbs of chaos. I guess all of the chaos magic has been turned into an orb at this point. Circling around Agatha, she's got all of her focus is trying to pour all of this energy into the book. The Scarlet Witch and Captain Marvel specifically confront Agatha, try and talk her down. She's like, no, I can't. I got to do this. Agatha says something along the lines that the Earth cannot contain all of the chaos magic that is within it. Like, it sounds like Earth's going to blow up because there's too much chaos magic in it. And I don't know what that means. That's never been a thing before. There's never been a like, oh, well, these characters using chaos magic, like, draws magic out of a reservoir within the planet and allows you to cast spells. There's never been anything like that stated. Even within the length of this series, like, it would make sense given that the Moon Knight Annual set up this idea that the Etsum crystals are chaos magic made physical. But again, is this like is the idea here that the Scarlet Witch imprisoned Chthon within her soul and in doing so bound chaos energy to the earth through her body? And that is now causing a buildup of chaos energy because not enough of it is getting released naturally through magic? What? And I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. So Agatha's ranting about, no, the planet needs me to save it. You can't handle this. Like, literally, Agatha's argument with Wanda in this issue is, I'm taking on this responsibility because it's too heavy a burden for you to bear, when literally that's the very argument that Wanda had against Agatha in the Annual, where she went, I can carry this burden because I'm like the most powerful person in the universe, yo. Why don't you step off my back and let me do my job? And so it is really frustrating to literally read all of these issues and see Agatha's character act in a way that is completely antithesis to the way that she was set up at the beginning of this little event. So the characters interrupt the spell. At the very last second, Captain Marvel grabs the Darkhold, and Agatha's like, no! And like runs towards it. And then there's a big magical explosion. Agatha is thrown away. All of the hero characters escape because they're hero characters. They do escape with the Darkhold book, and they're just like, I guess Agatha failed in her spell. Who knows? And then Agatha wakes up on a beach, and she's like, it's gotta be here. It's gotta be here. And she's searching through the waves for the spell book, and it's not there. But then she looks up, and there's a little kid, maybe like 7, 8, 9 years old, I don't know, wearing what looks to be the clothing from like the 1600s to me. And she's like, yo, kid, didn't your parents ever teach you not to talk to like strangers who wash up on beaches? Like, I am not a good person. And he's like, look, Agatha, you don't even need to worry about it. I am the Darkhold. And then like all of these runes come off him, and he's got the big Darkhold D on his chest. And it says, to be the end, question mark. And it's just, is that really what we're doing? Like, I don't know. I don't like this ending. I don't like this ending at all. We have this entire event is literally built around showcasing how these characters fight and how they interact with each other and what makes these characters dangerous powerhouses. And then you pit arguably the best superheroes in the Marvel Universe, the Avengers, against Agatha's brainwashed, magically group of characters, which contain some of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. And that fight's not even cool. Nothing about it is memorable. Nothing about it is notable. I guess you get a part where Captain Marvel like throws Cyclops in the ocean and she's like, God, that felt cathartic. Which it admittedly is a nice nod back to the X-Men annual, but like none of the fighting's interesting. There's no interesting character work going on. Like I said, Agatha's conversation with Wanda feels completely botched from what it was set up as back in the Scarlet Witch annual that kicked the whole thing off. It doesn't look particularly good either. None of this feels like even the idea that these characters are going to be busy and fighting off panel and the rest of this issue should be the confrontation between Wanda and Agatha feels right. They are the two magical powerhouses of these two sides, one of them fighting for chaos and one of them fighting against chaos. But I really feel like Agatha needed more of a presence in the overall storyline here, just to, like, we know what she wanted to do, create a new Darkhold, but we do not know why. At the beginning of the book, we're given this idea that something bad is coming and Agatha wants to create a new Darkhold in order to defend the world against it. And then we've got, like, I think it was 8 fights. 8 fights happen, and then in our last issue, Agatha's like, I need to keep the Earth from blowing up because there's too much chaos magic in it. And that just comes out of nowhere. All of our magical crystal totems are different, almost different from every single issue. I think we saw 3, it might have been 4, but I think it was 3 purple orbs, and then every other episode it was like, oh, this time it's a golden teddy bear. It's a teal and purple fish. It's just, what? And I really feel like the smart ass writer answer is, oh, well, everything's slightly different because of chaos magic. Woo! And like, screw you. That is such lazy bullcrap writing to try and explain out a lack of communication from the writing teams, a lack of care from the writing teams, or a lack of care from the editorial team that should have been making sure that all of these issues told a cohesive narrative story. Because at the end of the day, you just bought 10 issues. You just spent $50 buying this comic, and this is not a $50 story. These were not $50 fights. I am extremely frustrated to have gotten to a point where we see all this stuff happen and then nothing interesting comes of it. And you could go with the idea of, oh, well, they're setting up now the Darkhold's a living being and it can do its own stuff and it can act on its own. But who cares? The Darkhold, hasn't been an important part of the Marvel Universe in forever, quite frankly. And even if you go read the Darkhold ongoing series from the 1990s, there was an avatar character for the Darkhold who went around handing out pages from the goddamn book. The character was meant to be more of a narrative device, like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt. But the character existed in Marvel continuity. I think he was called the Dwarf because he was a little person. But I mean, he's basically a representative for the Darkhold. Like, we had this character exist already. Why did we need to make a new one? Why is he 1600s themed? And then why does it look like a little boy? And again, you're going to go, oh, well, it's chaos energy. Screw you. I don't care. None of that feels smart. None of that feels well planned. None of that feels intelligently done at all. And the idea of taking a magical artifact like the Darkhold and turning it into a person with agency frustrates the crap out of me, because Marvel just did that ish with the Infinity Gems a couple years ago, and it turned all the Infinity Gems into superpowered individuals. And the one who's mattered the most was a character named Star, who fought Captain Marvel a couple times, and then guess what? Faded into obscurity because they're not interesting characters. The Infinity Gems are interesting plot MacGuffins because you'll have a character who's incredibly motivated to put together the Infinity Gems, like a Thanos, like a Doctor Doom, like a Kang, like I don't care who. You can have somebody go, I really need the Infinity Gauntlet to accomplish X task. And then that's your story, is how they do it. Now, whenever you want to do an Infinity Gem story, you not only have to have one character who you're following and other characters to oppose them. Now you've got like 5 more characters in between those steps that character has to work with or trick or cajole into allying with them in order to accomplish their goal. And you might go, oh, well, Ben, that's a lot of conflict in that story. That could be really interesting. It's too conflicted. You're lucky if you get a 6-issue story arc out of a comic book these days, much less anything longer than that. And now each one of those issues would need to be an Infinity Gem, and then there's the end of your story. In the same way with this, where we've got 8 issues of violence and chaos and very little character work, and no character work for Agatha, and no forward momentum for Agatha's story at all, no explanation for her actions, no conflict to her character, like, she doesn't feel bad about betraying Wanda. There's no depth to Agatha in this story at all, and this is a story that she could have starred in. This could have been the thing that makes you go, oh man, Agatha, what a force to be reckoned with in the Marvel Universe. Like, it just feels... It feels like a lot of flash and noise and no substance whatsoever. I had similar feelings with the Midnight Suns miniseries from 2021. I think it was 2022. That ended with Agatha being young and attractive looking again. Where that felt like a setup, which is then followed up vaguely ish here with Contest of Chaos, which is now a setup for whatever the next thing is. And we don't even get a good to be continued to know that this is definitely going to have repercussions down the line. We get a the end question mark. Screw your the end question mark. Maybe this doesn't matter. Maybe I spent $50 and no one cares. Like, no. That's like like, this is one of those times where, like, I enjoyed the journey to get here. I did really enjoy 4 out of the 8 overall issues. 5, I guess, if you include the Scarlet Witch Annual. I did really enjoy 5 out of the 8 issues here. I thought they were well written. I thought that they looked good. I thought they did a good job showcasing the characters and their abilities and projected interesting fights. But then we also had 4 issues that were, quite frankly, almost garbage from a reading perspective. Some of them looked better than others, but from a writing perspective, they just weren't entertaining. They weren't fun. They weren't interesting. They didn't push the story momentum forward at all. This really just feels like a complete whiff here at the end. It would be one thing if there was an immediate announcement of, like, the Darkhold's going to show up in this book. Like, I'm hoping that the Darkhold and Agatha will show up again in the Scarlet Witch's ongoing series at some point, but we have no guarantee of that. There's been nothing in the current story arc that hints at anything that happened in the Contest of Chaos or picks up on it at all. And to be fair, Steve Orlando was the one who wrote the 2 Darkhold one-shots, the Alpha and Omega Darkhold one-shots, that kind of set Wanda on this path. And then it took a couple years for this setup with Agatha to actually pay off in, if you want to call this a payoff here in the Contest of Chaos. So, I mean, it could be something that we'll see in a year or 2 down the line. But again, I don't want to pay $50 for a puzzle piece that's going to pay off in 2 to 3 years' time, maybe in another story that's not very good. Maybe if this whole book had been, or maybe if this whole story had been orchestrated by one author, or at least one editor. I did not look to see if they all have a single editor or not. It could be multiple editors. I did do some research after my reading and breakdowns into the creative teams behind all of these comics, and unfortunately there is no strong connective thread between them. Between Midnight Suns, the Darkhold mini-event, and the Contest of Chaos issues, we ultimately have 15 different authors and 14 different editors. That is a ridiculous amount of people shaping this event, and I think it is exactly why this event doesn't work. Also, I said that Wolverine wore his Midnight Suns armor when he was possessed by Agatha's magic, but that was a lie. That's just a mistake on my part. His Midnight Suns armor was black and red, and the armor shown here was clearly purple and gray, the colors of comic book evil, other than throwing some green in there. I would also like to note that no one else got a makeover as part of this possession. Some of them got vaguely purpled, like their eyes glowed purple, just a little bit, and Venom got like a little bit spikier, but otherwise, Storm, Taeguk-gi, the Human Torch, White Fox, and Venom pretty much just look the same. Like, Wolverine gets a whole new outfit, like he gets a whole new action figure as part of this event, and everybody else just stays themselves. That's kind of lame. Speaking of Wolverine, when the heroes are escaping the boats that are sinking again now that the Bermuda Triangle is closing, Captain America flies Wolverine away. And I'm talking Sam Wilson Captain America. You know, the Falcon turned Captain America. The normal guy Captain America, who does not have any form of enhanced strength at all, who then somehow manages to carry a 400-pound dude across the ocean. Wolverine's got a metal skeleton. He is canonically heavy. There are comics where Wolverine's literally like, yeah, I can't swim because there's like buoyancy doesn't exist for me. I will just sink to the bottom of the ocean like worse than a rock does. You think rocks sink? Ha! They got nothing on me. There is no way that Sam should have been able to carry Wolverine at all, so that bothers me as part of the storyline as well. There was just so much potential to this story. This could have been the story that cemented Agatha as a big-time power player in the Marvel Universe, and she doesn't even necessarily have to be a bad guy. We could have gotten fun, chaosified versions of all of Agatha's minions. We could have had, like, the Midnight Suns could have showed up to save their pal, Wolverine, who, again, classically, does not get along with magic stuff. In the Midnight Suns miniseries, when Magic shows up and she's like, hey, I need your help dealing with the thing. He's like, magic is not my thing, kid. And she's like, yeah, but you're good at stabbing stuff. And we're probably going to need that. And so he does go along with it. But that's a really fun sort of engagement. Do you know how much I would have laughed if the Avengers were busy fighting all of Agatha's thralls and they were struggling with the fight, but then Magic, Blade, Nico, and a Spirit Rider just like teleport in, they all jump on Agatha like Scooby-Doo style, beat her up, and then ruin her plans? I would have laughed my butt off. Captain America could have even been like, how did you guys know this was a thing? And Blade would have just shrugged and gone, this is what we do. We fight magical bad guys every day, while y'all are fighting alien invasions or Namor or whatever. Good job doing nothing of importance here. And then, Blade would ask Wolverine if I want a beer, and they would bounce. Even Moon Knight was a Midnight Sun once during the early 2018, maybe 2017, 2018 Damnation storyline that spun out of, what was it? Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, and Iron Fist, I think. Moon Knight was a Midnight Sun as part of that event. He is canonically friends with Clea, both from Jed MacKay's time writing the Strange series, as well as his Moon Knight series. And Jed MacKay wrote the Moon Knight one-shot for this story event. Why not have Moon Knight call Clea and be like, yo, some magic crystals might have messed with my head and done something with a Korean version of Superman? Do you want to look into that at all? And maybe that's how she could have gotten involved, instead of Spider-Man and then Jessica Jones, who doesn't do pretty much anything here other than go like, we should talk to Clea. And then they go talk to Clea. And Spider-Man doesn't do anything. It's just, there's so many connections here that the authors, I suppose, could have played with that were already pre-existing, that would have been fun and interesting and would have actually done something, as opposed to Spider-Man literally standing around for all of this event other than his one-shot going, I don't want to be here. Great, get him out, shuffle him off. Like, he's got stuff to do in his own book. That's fine. Like, leave him alone. Maybe if this book had an actual, like, plot line guiding it forward, I would feel a little bit more kind towards it. Well, I got really Kermity.
I would feel a lot more kind towards it if there was maybe one driving editor or driving narrative voice moving the book forward, if you know what I'm saying. That way, I really feel like this story should have been more focused on Agatha and the things that she was trying to accomplish and why she was trying to accomplish them. And from there, then you would get into the conflict between the actual characters,
I think that would have worked a lot better. As an Agatha story, this doesn't do anything interesting other than create the Darkhold, which, I mean, you could have done a one-shot and created the Darkhold. Like, legitimately, this could have been like an oversized one shot where you just have like 2 pages of each of these characters fighting, and it could be just as boring as the bad issues of this were, and then it ends with Agatha having created the Darkhold again, and she's like, whoa, and he's like, oh, I'm evil, and Scarlet Witch is like, I hope Agatha's okay. This could have been a 4-issue miniseries with half the cost and way better focus and character depth. Half of these stories didn't need to happen. That Deadpool Venom issue is absolutely useless. You could literally just, if you don't read that, nothing happens. Nothing happens with Venom's character. Nothing interesting happens. It's just, So overall, I'm just left with too bad of a taste in my mouth right now. Maybe with some more time, this is one of those things that I'll reread and be like, you know what? It's not that bad. It's kind of fun. And it was kind of fun seeing some of these characters fight and meet for the first time. Again, I really like the White Fox Spider-Gwen friendship. I hope that gets followed up at some point in the near future. I don't think it will, but I hope that it does. So like I said, maybe with some more time, my feelings on this will shift. But otherwise, I'm very much not impressed by the Contest of Chaos. I almost vindictively don't care what happens next with the Darkhold or Agatha because it doesn't... Why? So I can buy 5 more issues of something and then it'll end with a to be continued ? And then I gotta buy another $50 worth of stuff? It's one thing to, like, you're supposed to make me want to buy your comics. You're not supposed to force me to buy your comics and then just be like, oh wait, we're teasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. No, thank you. Overall, Contest of Chaos is a failure to me. I remember reading, I think I brought this up in my Let's Talk About the Contest of Chaos episode. I remember bringing up one of the writers or editors who worked on the series being like, hey, I wanted to make an annual event that made you rush out to the store, that made you rush out to the store to buy the annuals, like the annual events I read when I was a kid. And I jokingly said online, I have never in my life rushed to a comic book store to buy an annual event. Contest of Chaos continues the trend. Was this fun? There's some good stuff here. I'm not going to say there's not. There's definitely some gems in this pile of crap. But overall, this isn't very good. It ends in a semi-interesting maybe way if it gets picked up on at some point. And if it doesn't get picked up on, then it just ends in a really weird way. There's no overriding narrative. There's no overriding story. We have no good motivation for Agatha. She's not an interesting character. She's just doing stuff because Marvel doesn't know what to do with her. Like, Agatha got too popular because of WandaVision, and Marvel's like, I guess she's a character? Let's try doing some Agatha stuff. But nobody has a plan. Nobody's pushing a narrative forward here. It would be one thing if there was a writer or an editor who was like, I love the potential of Agatha. Let's make her into a thing. And then maybe we would have a more cohesive vision for the character, and instead we have this. Ah, what a bummer. All right, well, next week, we're going to flip the script again. We're going to go to something completely different. I'm actually going to be traveling back in time to the early 2000s, when I started to explore the world of comic books outside of Marvel publication. We're going to be taking a look at a book that I actually bought the first issue of when I bought my first issue of Battle Chasers. It is another fantasy comic, but with a very different lean to it. Join me in a week for episode... This is 28. Then join me in a week for episode 29 of Comic Book Breakdown, where we're going to begin breaking down Wildstorm's Tail Weaver. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well. I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.